Number please. Divigit. Number 8. So shows. We have traveled long, just a little more patience. 8 is a very unknown book. It should not be unknown because it was written by George Bernard Shaw. The book is called Maxims for a Revolutionary. All his other books are well known except for Maxims for a Revolutionary. Only an insane man like me can choose it. I have forgotten everything else he has written. It is all rubbish. Just garbage. By the way, one of my sons here is called Bodagarb. Garb means pregnant. The name means pregnant with a Buddha, ready to be born as a Buddha. Some people call him Bodhi Garbage. I love it. It is far truer. Bodhi Garbage. Yes. If you can attain to Buddhahood, to Bodhi, even garbage will become divine. Otherwise everything is garbage already. I love George Bernard Shaw's small book Maxims for a Revolutionary. Forgotten by all, but not by me. I choose strange things, strange people, strange places. Maxims for a Revolutionary seems to have descended on George Bernard Shaw. Because otherwise he was just a skeptic. He was not even a saint, not enlightened nor even thinking about enlightenment. He may not have even heard the word. He belonged to a totally different world. By the way, I can't tell you that he loved the girl. He fell in love and wanted to marry her, but the girl wanted to become enlightened. She wanted to seek the truth, so she went away to India. That woman was none other than Annie Besant. Thank God GDS could not persuade her to become his wife, otherwise we would have missed a tremendously powerful woman. Her insight, her love, her wisdom. Yes, she was a witch. I really mean she was a witch. I don't mean bitch. I mean witch. Which is really a beautiful word. It means wise. Books I have loved 47 Osho. Chapter 8. This is a man's world. When a man becomes wise he is called the Buddha, the Christ, a prophet. When a woman becomes wise she is called a witch. Look at the unfairness of it. But the original meaning of the word is beautiful. Maxims for a Revolutionary begins. The first maxim is, there are no golden rules. This is the first rule. Now, even this small statement is of tremendous beauty. There are no golden rules. Yes, there are none. This is the only golden rule. For the remainder you will have to study the book. Remember, whenever I say study I mean meditate over it. Whenever I say read it, meditation is not required. Only acquaintance with the language will do. 9th. Am I right? Divigit. Yes. So shows. So good to hear once in a while that I am right. I have not heard it for at least 40 years. Nobody in my family ever said it. I was always wrong. And I thank God that I was wrong. Not right according to them, but wrong according to myself. None of my teachers ever said I was right. I was always wrong. It was a daily routine, almost the usual practice, that I was sent to the headmaster to be punished. The captain of the class would take me to the headmaster, who used to then ask me what I had done that day. But by and by the headmaster stopped asking. I would go there and he would punish me, slap me on the face, and that was all. He did not even ask what wrong I had done. Once it happened, and still I laugh at the incident. that the captain of the class did something wrong. My teacher jokingly sent the captain to the headmaster with me. I had to take the captain to the headmaster for him to be punished, but before I could say anything he had already punished me. I laughed, and he said, "What is the matter?" I said, "Today you were meant to punish the other fellow. I have come with him. He did not bring me, I have brought him, and you have already slapped my face." The headmaster said, "Sorry." I said, "I don't believe in words. Let me slap you." And I really slapped him. Now the old man is in his grave. I feel sorry that I slapped him, but I didn't slap him too hard. Just very softly, just like a breeze passing through the pine trees. It is so good to hear just once that I am right. Just to hear it again. Is it the 8th number? Now you must be in difficulty. No, I know already it is the 9th. Okay. 9th. My choice for the 9th is Wei-Nen, the Chinese successor to Bodhidharma. Teachings of Wei and Eng are as yet unknown, and untranslated outside Japan. The Wei-Nen is one of the pinnacles, the very crescendo a man can rise to. Wei-Nen does not say much, he only gives hints, just a few hints. But they are enough. Like footprints, if you can't follow books I have loved 48 Osho. Chapter 8. You will reach. What he says is essentially not different from Buddha or Jesus, but the way he says it is his own, authentically original. He says it in his own way, and that proves he is not a parrot, not a pope or a priest. Wei-Nen can be summarized very easily, but can only be realized by those who can risk all. He can be summarized very easily because all that he says is, do not think, be. But to realize it one will need many lives, unless one is utterly intelligent. Then, this very moment, here and now, it can become the reality in you. It is already the reality in me. Why can't it become the reality in you? Except you. Nobody is preventing it. 10th, and at last the last. I am afraid, that's why I remained a little bit hesitant, to say or not to say, Mullah Nasruddin. He is not a fictitious figure, he was a Sufi and his grave still exists. But he was such a man that he could not resist even to joke from his grave. He made a will that his gravestone will be nothing but a door, locked, and the keys thrown away into the ocean. Now this is strange. People go to see his grave. They can go round and round the door because there are no walls. There is just a door standing there. No walls at all. And the door is locked. The man Mullah Nasruddin must be laughing in his grave. I have loved no one as I have loved Nasruddin. He is one of the men who has brought religion and laughter together. Otherwise they have always stood back to back. Nasruddin forced them to drop their old enmity and become friends. And when religion and laughter meet, when meditation laughs, and when laughter meditates, the miracle happens. The miracle of all miracles. Just 2 minutes for me. I always love to stop when things are at their climax. Books I have loved. 49. Osho. Chapter 9. 1984 in Lao Tzu House, Rajneeshpuram, Oregon, USA. Now is my time. I don't think anybody is spoken in a dentist's chair. I feel privileged. I see Buddhas envious of me. The PS continues. The first book today, The Destiny of the Mind by THUS. I don't know how his name is pronounced. HAAS. I pronounce it THUS. The book is not very well known for the simple reason that it is so profound. I think this fellow THUS must be a German. Even so, he has created a book of immense significance. He is not a poet. He writes like a mathematician. He is the man who gave me the word philo. Philosophy means love of wisdom. Philo is love, and Sophia is wisdom. But it cannot be applicable to darshan, the Eastern way of looking at the whole. Philosophy is harsh. In his book Destiny of the Mind, THUS uses for darshan not the word philosophy but philo. Philo still means love, but Hosa means truth, the real, the ultimately real, not love of knowledge or wisdom, but love for the truth, palatable or unpalatable. It does not matter. This is one of those books which has brought East and West closer. But just closer. Books cannot do anything more. For the meeting to happen, a man is needed, not a book. And THUS was not that man. His book is beautiful, but he himself is just ordinary. For the real meeting, a Buddha, the Bodhidharma, the Jesus, a Mohammed or a Baal Shem is needed. In short, meditation is needed. And I don't think that this man THUS ever meditated. He may have concentrated. Germans know much about concentration camps. Great. I have been holding meditation camps and they have been holding concentration camps. Concentration is German, meditation is not. Yes. Once in 50. Chapter 9. While even in Germany the meditator has happened, but that is not the rule, only the exception, and the exception always proves the rule. I know Eckhart, and I know Homa. My second name today is Eckhart. I would have loved for him to have been born in the East, to be born among Germans and then to write or speak about the ultimate is a difficult job. But the poor man did it, and did it perfectly. Germans are Germans. Whatsoever they do it perfectly. Even today it seems one German son Ibsen is still knocking. Perfection. Listen to his knocks. How beautiful they sound amidst all this silence. Eckhart was uneducated. It is strange that many of the mystics are uneducated. There must be something wrong with education. Why are there not so many educated mystics? Education must be destroying something, and that prevents people from becoming mystics. Yes, education destroys. 25 years continuously, from the kindergarten to the postgraduate courses in university, it goes on destroying the new whatsoever is beautiful and aesthetic. The lotus is crushed under scholarship. The rose is murdered by the so-called professors, teachers, vice-chancellors, chancellors. What beautiful names they have chosen for themselves. The real education has not begun yet. It has to begin. It will be the education of the heart, not of the head, of the feminine the new, not the masculine. It is a wonder that Eckhart, among the Germans, the most male chauvinist race in the world, remained yet in his heart, and spoke from there. Uneducated, poor, of no political status, of no economic status, of no status at all, just a beggar, but so rich. Very few people have been so rich. Rich in his being, right being in capital letters. These two words, being and becoming, have to be understood. Becoming is a process with no beginning and no end, a continuum. But being is not a process at all, it simply is. Call it business, and you will be very close to it. Being is neither of time nor of space, it is a transcendence. Transcendence. Again, write transcendence in capital letters. Alas that you cannot write it in golden letters. It is a word that should be written in gold, pure gold, not 18 karat but 24 karat, 100% gold. Eckhart said only a few things, but even those were enough to irritate the ugly priesthood, the Pope and the devils that surround him. They immediately stopped Eckhart. They told him what to say and what not to say. It needs a madman like me not to listen to these fools. But Eckhart was a simple man. He listened to authority. The German is after all a German. When you say left turn he turns left. When you say right turn he turns right. I was expelled from army training at the university because then they said right turn. I would think it over. Everybody would immediately turn except me. The military officer was puzzled. He said, "What's the matter with you? Can't you hear? Is something wrong with your ears?" I said, "No, something is wrong with me. I don't see the point. Why should I turn left or right? There is no necessity, no reason. And these poor fools who have turned to the right and then to the left will come to the same position that I am in already." Books I have loved 51 Osho. Chapter 9. Naturally I was expelled, and I was immensely happy. Everybody thought it was bad luck, and I thought it was good luck. They whispered that something must be wrong with me. He was expelled and yet he is enjoying. I threw a party with wine and all. Eckhart listened. The German cannot be really enlightened. It will be very difficult. Wittgenstein may be the first German who became enlightened. But Eckhart was very close. One step more and the world will end. And the opening of the doors, the opening to the beyond. But he said, even though he was a German, and even under pressure from the Pope, he said beautiful things. Just a little bit of truth has entered into his sayings, hence I include him. Third, another German, Boma. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but who cares? That is how it is written, Boehme. Germans must pronounce it differently, that much I am certain. But I am not a German. I don't have to compromise with anyone in any way. I have always called him Boomery. Even if he comes to me and says, "That's not exactly my name," I will say, "Get lost. To me this is your name, and this is going to be your name, Boomery." Strangely, whenever Arpita comes into my room I smell Boma. I suddenly remembered Boma. Maybe it's just an association, because he was a shoemaker and Arpita is my shoemaker. But Arpita, you are blessed that you remind me of Boma, one of the most beautiful Germans ever. Again, he was utterly poor. It seems one has to be poor to be wise. That has been the case up to now. But not after me. After me you have to be rich to be enlightened. Let me repeat it. You have to be rich to be enlightened. Jesus says the rich will not enter into his kingdom of God. He was talking in the old way. I say emphatically that only the richest will enter into the kingdom of God. And remember, what I am saying is the same as what Jesus was saying. It is not contradictory. The poor in Jesus' terminology and the rich in my terminology mean exactly the same. He calls a man poor who has lost himself, his ego, and that is the man I call rich. The more egoless you are, the richer you are. But in the past, very rarely was a man like Homo born into a rich family, particularly in the West. It is not so in the East. Buddha was a prince, Mahavira was a prince, the 24 Tirthankaras of the Jainas were all kings. Krishna was a king, Rama was a king. All were rich, immensely rich. It signifies something. It signifies the richness I am talking about. A man is rich when his ego is lost. When he is no more, he is. Homer says a few things, just a few. He could not say many things, so don't be afraid. The one thing I would like to mention is, the heart is the temple of God. Yes, Homer, it is the heart, not the head. Fourth, a man, Rajneeshpuram. I will not mention any of his books because all of them are beautiful. I recommend every one of this man's books. Don't be afraid, I am still insane. Nothing can make me sane. But one book I shot towers above all the others. All are beautiful. I would like to mention them all, but the book The Sufis is just a diamond. The value of what he has done in the Sufis is immeasurable. Don't interrupt. This is going beautifully. Books I have loved 52 Osho. Chapter 9. Talking, for me, is so easy. I can even talk while asleep, and very rationally too. Good. Whenever I recognize something like this, I always appreciate it. And this is beautiful. This is what you will understand if you can't understand Rajneeshpuram's book The Sufis. He is the man who introduced Mullah Nasruddin to the West, and he has done an incredible service. He cannot be repaid. The West has to remain obliged to him forever. Rajneeshpuram has made just the small anecdotes of Nasruddin even more beautiful. This man not only has the capacity to exactly translate the parables, but even to beautify them, to make them more poignant, sharper. I include all of his books. Is my number right? Yes. So shows. Fifth, I am going to include another man, Alan Watts, with all his books. I have loved this man immensely. I have loved Buddha for different reasons. I have loved Solomon for a different reason. They are enlightened. Alan Watts is not. He is an American. Not a born American. That's his only hope. He just emigrated there. But he has written tremendously valuable books. The Way of Zen should be counted as one of the most important. This is a tremendous work of beauty and understanding, and from a man who is yet unenlightened, hence it is more appreciable. When you are enlightened, whatsoever you say is beautiful. It has to be. But when you are not enlightened and groping in the dark, and yet can find a small window of light, that's tremendous. Fantastic. Alan Watts was a drunkard, but still he was very close. He was once an ordained Christian priest. What a misfortune! But he renounced it. Very few people have the guts to renounce the priesthood, because it provides so many things of the world. He renounced all that and became almost a hobo. But what a hobo! It reminds one of Bodhidharma, Basho, or Rinzai. Galantwitz cannot remain long without becoming a Buddha. He died long ago. By this time he must be leaving school. Must be ready to come to me. I am waiting for all these people. Galantwitz is one of them. I am waiting for him. 6th. Just now, by the way, I mentioned the name Rinzai. My 6th is his sayings. The collection of his sayings. Is my number correct? Yes. So shows. That's good. You whispered something to a shoe. So I wondered. Excuse me for interrupting you. You are concentrating so much on your notes. Rinzai. His Chinese name is Lin Kai. In Japanese it is Rinzai. I choose the Japanese Rinzai. Rinzai looks more beautiful, more aesthetic. The sayings of Rinzai are just dynamite. For instance, he says, "You fools, you followers of Buddha, renounce him. Unless you renounce him you will not find him." Rinzai loved Buddha, that's why he said this. He also said, before you use the name Gautam Buddha, remember that that name is not the reality. The Buddha outside in the pagoda is not the real Buddha. It is within you, of whom you are completely unaware, of whom you have never heard. That is the real Buddha. Get rid of the outer Buddha so you can get the inner. Rinzai says, there is no doctrine, no teaching, no Buddha. And remember, he was not an enemy of Buddha but a follower, the disciple. Books I have loved 53 Osho. Chapter 9. It was Rinzai who took the flower of Zen away from China to Japan. He transmitted the spirit of Zen to the Japanese language, and not only to the language but to the culture itself, to flower arrangement, to pottery, to gardening and whatnot. One man, one single man, transformed the whole life of a nation. 7th. The 7th is not an enlightened man like Rinzai, but very close. Hazrat Inayat Khan, the man who introduced Sufism to the West. He did not write a book, but all his lectures have been collected into 12 volumes. Here and there they are beautiful. Forgive me, I cannot say they are all beautiful, but here and there, once in a while, particularly when he is talking about a Sufi story, he is beautiful. He was also a musician. In that way he was really a maestro. He was not the master in the spiritual world, but in the world of music he certainly was. But once in a while he flew to the spiritual heroes beyond the clouds, to fall back with a thud. Of course, he must have suffered from Devara, what do you call it? Multi-fracture? Multiple fractures. Perhaps that's the right word. 8. The son of Hazrat Inayat Khan. His name is well known to the seekers in the West, Hazrat Vilayat Ali Khan. He is a beautiful man. He is still living. The father is dead. Vilayat is alive. And when I say alive, I really mean it, not only breathing. Breathing, of course, but not only breathing. All his books are also included hereby. Vilayat Ali Khan is also a musician, just like his father, only of a higher quality, of a greater depth. He is more profound. And, listen to this pause, more silent too. 9th. Again I want to include another book by Khalil Gibran, Jesus, the Son of Man. It is one of the books which is almost ignored. Christians ignore it because it calls Jesus the Son of Man. They not only ignore it, they condemn it. And of course, who else cares about Jesus? If Christians themselves are condemning him, then nobody else cares about it. Khalil Gibran is a Syrian from very close to Jerusalem. In fact, in the hills of Syria, a few people at least, still speak Aramaic, the language of Jesus. Amid those high-reaching cedars, anyone, even a fool, is bound to be amazed, mystified. Khalil Gibran was born in Syria under the cedars reaching towards the stars. He comes very close in representing the real man Jesus, closer than the four so-called disciples who wrote the Gospels. They are more gossips than Gospels. Khalil Gibran is closer, but Christians were angry because he calls Jesus the Son of Man. I loved the book. The book related different people's stories about Jesus: a laborer, a farmer, a fisherman, a tax collector, yes, even a tax collector, a man, a woman, all possibilities. It is as if Khalil Gibran is asking many people about Jesus, the real Jesus, not the Christian Jesus, the real Jesus, made of flesh. And the stories are so beautiful. Each story needs to be meditated upon. Jesus, the Son of Man, is my 9th selection for today. 10th, another book by Khalil Gibran, The Madman. I cannot leave it out, although I confess I wanted to. I wanted to leave it out because I am that madman about whom he is talking. But I cannot leave it out. He talks so meaningfully, so authentically about the very innermost core of the madman. And this madman is no ordinary madman, but a Buddha, the Kabir. I have always wondered, how Khalil Gibran could manage it. He himself was not the madman. He himself was not the enlightened one. He was born in Syria, but lived unfortunately in America. Books I have loved 50 for Osho. Chapter 9. But there are wonders and wonders. Questions without answers. How did he manage? Perhaps he did not manage it himself. Perhaps someone, what Sufis call Kaitar, and Theosophists call Kuhumi, must have taken possession of him. He was possessed, but not always. When he was not writing he was a very ordinary man, in fact more ordinary than the so-called ordinary man, full of jealousy, anger, passions of all kinds. But once in a while he became possessed from above, and then something started pouring through him. Paintings, poetry, parables. Books I have loved. 55. Osho. Chapter 10. 1984 in Lao Tzu House, Rajneeshpuram, Oregon, USA. Okay, how many books have I talked about in the postscript? 40. 30, I think. Osho. 30. Good. Such a relief, because so many books are still waiting. You could understand my relief only if you had to choose one book out of 1,000, and that's exactly what I am doing. The postscript continues. The first book, Jean-Paul Sartre's Being and Nothingness. First I must mention that I don't like the man. I don't like him because he is a snob. He is one of the most snobbish people of this century. I call him a snob because he has become the leader of existentialism without knowing at all what it means to be existential. But the book is good, not for my disciples but for those who have gone a little bit nuts. just a little bit. It is unreadable. If you are a little bit nuts, it will bring you to your senses. It is a great work in that sense. Medicinal. Deborah noted. Medicinal. It should be prescribed in all mad asylums. Each madman should be forced to read it, study it. If it cannot bring you to sanity, nothing can. But only to first-degree nuts, like philosophers, professors, mathematicians, scientists, but only the first degree, not those very advanced in madness. The existentialism of which Jean-Paul Sartre is the representative is a mockery. Without ever knowing anything of meditation, he talks about being, and he talks about nothingness. Alas, they are not two. Being is nothingness. That is why Buddha has called being anatta, no self. Gautama the Buddha is the only man in history to call self no self. I love Buddha for 1,001 reasons. This is only one of the reasons. The 1,000 I cannot count because of the shortage of time. Perhaps one day I may start talking about those 1,000 reasons too. 56. Chapter 10. But Jean-Paul Sartre I dislike. Just dislike. Not even hate. Because hate is a strong word. I save it for the second book. Jean-Paul Sartre knows nothing of existence, but he has created a jargon, a philosophical jargon, intellectual gymnastics. And it really is gymnastics. If you can read 10 pages of being and nothingness, either you will become sane or insane. But to read 10 pages is a difficult task. When I was a professor I gave it to many of my students, but nobody ever completed it. Nobody could even read 10 pages. 1 page was too much. In fact, 1 paragraph itself was too much. You cannot make any head or tail of it. And there are 1,000 pages or more. It is a big book. I remember it in my postscript because though I dislike the man, I may dislike his philosophy. Yes, I will call it philosophy, even though he wanted it to be called anti-philosophy. I cannot call it anti-philosophy for the simple reason that every anti-philosophy ultimately proves to be only another philosophy. Existence is neither philosophical nor anti-philosophical. It is. I include the book because he has done such a tremendous task. It is one of the most monumental books ever written, with such skill, such logic. And yet the man was just ordinary, a communist. That's another reason why I dislike him. A man who knows existence cannot be a communist, because he will know that equality is impossible. Inequality is the way things are. Nothing is equal and nothing can ever be equal. Equality is only the dream of stupid people. Existence is multidimensional inequality. Second, I will wait. Diligent ink has run out. What a fountain pen you have! My God! It seems it must have belonged to Adam and Eve. What a noise it makes! But one cannot expect anything else in this Noah's Ark. The second, because the noise has stopped. The second is Martin Heidegger. Time and being. I hate this man. He was not only a communist, but a fascist too, the follower of Adolf Hitler. I cannot believe what the Germans can do. He was such a talented man, a genius, and yet a supporter of that retarded imbecile Adolf Hitler. I am simply amazed. But the book is good, again not for my disciples. but for those who are very advanced in air madness. If you are really advanced in madness, Fred time and being, it is absolutely ununderstandable. It will hit you like a hammer on the head. But there are a few beautiful glimpses in it. Yes, when somebody hits you on the head with a hammer, even during the day you start seeing stars. This book is just like that. There are a few stars in it. The book is not complete. Martin Heidegger had promised to bring out a second part. He continued to promise again and again throughout his whole life, but he never produced the second part. Thank God. I think he himself could not understand what he had written, so how to continue it? How to bring out the second part? And the second part was going to be the culmination of his philosophy. It was better not to produce it, and not to become a laughing stock. He died without producing the second part. But even the first part is good for advanced insane people, and there are many. That is why I am talking about these books and including them in my list. Third, this is for the real adepts in madness, who have gone beyond all psychiatry, psychoanalysis, who are unhelpable. This third book is again the work of a German, Ludwig Wittgenstein. Just listen to its title, THUS. We will just call it THUS. It is one of the most difficult books in existence. Even a man like G.E. Moore, a great English philosopher, and books I have loved 57 show. Chapter 10. Bertrand Russell, another great philosopher, not only English but a philosopher of the whole world, both agreed that this man Wittgenstein was far superior to them both. Ludwig Wittgenstein was really a lovable man. I don't hate him, but I don't dislike him. I like him and I love him, but not his book. His book is only gymnastics. Only once in a while after pages and pages you may come across a sentence which is luminous. For example, that which cannot be spoken should not be spoken. One should be silent about it. Now this is a beautiful statement. Even saints, mystics, poets, can learn much from this sentence. That which cannot be spoken must not be spoken of. Wittgenstein writes in a mathematical way. Small sentences, not even paragraphs, sutras. But for the very advanced insane man this book can be of immense help. It can hit him exactly in his soul, not only in the head. Just like a nail, it can penetrate into his very being, that may wake him from his nightmares. Ludwig Wittgenstein was a lovable man. He was offered one of the most cherished chairs of philosophy at Oxford. He declined. That's what I love in him. He went to become a farmer and fisherman. This is lovable in the man. This is more existential than Jean-Paul Sartre, although Wittgenstein never talked of existentialism. Existentialism, by the way, cannot be talked about. You have to live it. There is no other way. This book was written when Wittgenstein was studying under G.E. Moore and Bertrand Russell, two great philosophers of Britain, and a German. It was enough to create THUS. Translated it means Wittgenstein, Moore and Russell. I, on my part, would rather have seen Wittgenstein sitting at the feet of Gurdjieff than studying with Moore and Russell. That was the right place for him, but he missed. Perhaps next time, I mean next life. For him, not for me. For me this is enough. This is the last. But for him, at least once he needs to be in the company of a man like Gurdjieff or Chuang-Tzu, Bodhidharma, but not more, Russell, not Whitehead. He was associating with these people, the wrong people. The right man in the company of wrong people, that's what destroyed him. My experience is, in the right company even a wrong person becomes right, and vice versa. In a wrong company, even a right person becomes wrong. But this only applies to unenlightened men, right or wrong, both. An enlightened person cannot be influenced. He can associate with anyone, Jesus with Magdalena, the prostitute, Buddha with a murderer who had killed 999 people. He had taken a vow to kill 1,000 people, and he was going to kill Buddha too. That's how he came into contact with Buddha. The murderer's name is not known. The name people gave to him was Angulimala, which means the man who wears a garland of fingers. That was his way. He would kill a man, cut off his fingers and put them on his garland, just to keep count of the number of people he had killed. Only 10 fingers were missing to make up the 1,000. In other words, only one man more. Then Buddha appeared. He was just moving on that road from one village to another. Angulimala shouted, "Stop!" Buddha said, "Great. That's what I have been telling people. Stop." "But, my friend, who listens?" Angulimala looked amazed. "Is this man insane?" And Buddha continued walking towards Angulimala. Angulimala again shouted, "Stop! It seems you don't know that I am a murderer. Books I have loved 58 Osho. Chapter 10. And I have taken a vow to kill 1,000 people. Even my own mother has stopped seeing me, because only one person is missing. I will kill you. But you look so beautiful that if you stop and turn back I may not kill you." Buddha said, "Forget about it. I have never turned back in my life, and as far as stopping is concerned, I stopped 40 years ago. Since then there is nobody left to move. And as far as killing me is concerned, you can do it anyway. Everything born is going to die." Angulimala saw the man, fell at his feet, and was transformed. Angulimala could not change Buddha. Buddha changed Angulimala. Magdalena the prostitute could not change Jesus, but Jesus changed the woman. So what I said is only applicable to so-called ordinary humanity. It is not applicable to those who are awakened. Wittgenstein can become awakened. He could have become awakened even in this life. Alas, he associated with wrong company. But his book can be of great help to those who are really third-degree insane. If they can make any sense out of it, they will come back to sanity. Fourth, before I utter the name of the fourth, I feel tremendously thankful to existence. Now I am going to talk about a man who was beyond numbers, Vimalkirti. The name of his book is Nivrdsh Sutra. Our Vimalkirti was not the only Vimalkirti. In fact, I had given him the name because of this Vimalkirti of whom I am going to talk to you. His statements are called the Vimalkirtidsh Sutra. Vimalkirtidsh Sutra means guidelines. Vimalkirti was one of the most wonderful men. Even a Buddha could be jealous of this man. He was a disciple of Buddha, but never became a disciple formally. He was never initiated by Buddha outwardly. And he was such a terrible man that all Buddha's disciples were afraid of him. They never wanted him to become a disciple. Just to see him on the way, or to greet him, was enough for him to say something shocking. To shock was his method. Gurdjieff would have loved him, or who knows, even Gurdjieff may have been shocked. The man was really terrible, the real man. It is said he was sick and Buddha asked Sariputta to go and see the old man and ask about his health. Sariputta said, "I have never said no to you, but this time I say it, and I say it emphatically. No, I don't want to go. Send somebody else. That man is really terrible. Even on his deathbed he will create trouble for me. I don't want to go." Buddha asked everybody, and nobody was ready to go except one man, Manjushri, the first of Buddha's disciples to become enlightened. He went, and that is how this book came to be created. It is a dialogue. Our Vimalkirti was given the name because of this man. The original Vimalkirti was dying on his bed, and Manjushri was asking him questions, or rather answering his questions. That's how the Vimalkirtidsh Sutra was born, a really great work. Nobody seems bothered about it because it is not a book of any particular religion. It is not even a book of the Buddhists, because he was never a formal disciple of Buddha. People pay so much respect to the form that they forget the spirit. I recommend the book to all truth seekers. They will find a mine of diamonds. Fifth, I want to bring J. Krishnamurti back to your notice again. The name of the book is Commentaries on Living. There are many volumes of it. It is made of the same stuff stars are made from. Books I have loved 59 Osho. Chapter 10. Commentaries on Living is his diary. Once in a while he writes something in his diary. The beautiful sunset, an ancient trees, or just the evening. Birds coming back home. Anything. The river rushing to the ocean. Whatever he feels, he sometimes notes it down. That's how this book was born. It is not written systematically. It is a diary. Yet to just read it is enough to transport you to another world, the world of beauty, or far better, beatitude. Can you see my tears? I have not read for some time, but just the mention of this book is enough to bring tears to my eyes. I love the book. It is one of the greatest books ever written. I have said before that Krishnamurti's First and Last Freedom is his best book, which he has not been able to transcend, of course not as a book, because Commentaries is only a diary, not a book in the real sense, but all the same I include it. Sixth. Is my number correct? Yes. So shows. So good to hear. Yes. So shows. Just to hear yes is so good, so nourishing, so vitalizing. I cannot be thankful enough for it. And I have thousands of sannyasis around the world singing yes. So shows, yes. I must consider myself the most fortunate man who has ever been on the earth, or any other planet. 6th. The sixth book is again called Commentaries, an immense work of 5 volumes by Maurice Nicole. Remember, I have always pronounced his name Maurice Nicole. Just this evening I asked Julia what is the real, exact, proper English pronunciation, because he was an Englishman. She said, Nicole. I said, my God. My whole life I have been calling him Nicole, just because of the spelling, Nicoll. I wondered how it can be pronounced Nicole. Nicole seems to be just the right pronunciation. But right or wrong, if Julia says so, she is properly English, then I will say okay. I will call him Maurice Nicole. And his commentaries. Nicole was a disciple of Gurdjieff, and unlike Ouspensky, he never betrayed, he was not the Judas. A true disciple to the very last breath and beyond it too. The commentaries of Nicole are vast. I don't think anybody reads them. Thousands and thousands of pages. But if one takes the trouble one is immensely benefited. In my opinion, Nicole's commentaries should be considered as one of the best books in the world. 7th. Again a book by another disciple of Gurdjieff, Hartman. The book is Our Life with Gurdjieff. Hartman. I don't know the exact pronunciation, because I can hear a little giggle somewhere. But don't be bothered about the pronunciation. Hartman and his wife were both disciples of Gurdjieff. Hartman was a musician and played for Gurdjieff's dances. Gurdjieff used dances as meditations, not only for the disciples but even for the people who saw the disciples dancing. In New York, when he performed for the first time, Hartman was playing the piano. The disciples were dancing, and the moment when Gurdjieff shouted stop, it was a stop exercise. Not you divigate, you go on writing. When Gurdjieff shouted stop, the dancers really stopped. In the books I have loved 60 Osho. Chapter 10. Middle of a dance. They were just on the edge of the stage. They all fell on top of one another on the floor, but still nobody moved. The audience was awestruck. They could not believe that people could be so obedient. Hartman wrote the book Our Life with Gurdjieff, and it is a beautiful description by a disciple. It will be helpful to anyone who is on the way. What is the number? That was number 7. So shows. Good. You are hearing. 8. And you see my way of teaching? And you see that even when I try to annoy you, it is just to teach you something of which you may not be aware right now. But someday you will feel grateful. 7th. Is that right? It is number 8. So shows. So good to be corrected by a disciple. Immensely good. The master always feels blessed if a disciple corrects him. And it is only a question of numbers. When I am trying to correct you all, at least I can allow you to have a little pleasure as far as numbers are concerned. So what is the number now? It is number 8. So shows. Good. Sometimes I want to laugh. 8. Good. The 8th book I am going to talk about is written by Rajneeshpuram, a Hindu mystic. It is called Shree Pasha. It is a commentary on Brahman Sutras. There are many commentaries on Brahman Sutras. I have already talked about the Rajneeshpuram Brahman Sutras. Rajneeshpuram comments on him in a way which is unique. The original book is very dry, absolutely desert-like. Of course the desert also has its beauty and its truth, but Rajneeshpuram in his essay Pasha makes it a garden, an oasis. He makes it juicy. I love the book Rajneeshpuram has written. I don't like Rajneeshpuram himself because he was a traditionalist. I hate the traditionalists, the orthodox, from my guts. I consider them to be fanatics, but what can I do? The book is beautiful. Once in a while even a fanatic can do something beautiful. So forgive me for including it. 9th. I have always loved the books of P.D. Uspensky, though I have never loved the man himself. He looked like a schoolmaster, not like a master. And can you love a schoolmaster? I tried while I was in school and failed. In college. And failed. In university. And failed. I could not do it. And I don't think anybody can love a schoolmaster, particularly if the schoolmaster is a woman. Then it is impossible. There are a few fools who even marry women who are schoolmasters. They must be suffering from the disease called by the psychologist masochism. They must be searching for someone to torture them. Books I have loved. 61. So shows. Chapter 10. I don't like Uspensky. He was exactly the schoolmaster, even when he was lecturing on the teachings of Gurdjieff. He would stand before a blackboard with a chalk in his hand, with a table and chair in front, exactly like a school teacher, with specs and all. Nothing was missing. And the way he taught. I can't see why so few people ever became attracted to him, although he was bringing a golden message. Secondly, I hate him because he was a Judas. I cannot love anybody who betrays. To betray is to commit suicide, spiritual suicide. Even Judas had to commit suicide just within 24 hours of Jesus being crucified. Uspensky is not my love affair, but what can I do? He was a capable writer, talented, a genius. This book I am going to mention was a posthumous publication. He never wanted it to be published during his lifetime. Maybe he was afraid. Maybe he thought it may not prove up to his expectations. It is a small book, and its name is The Future Psychology of Man. He wrote in his will that the book should only be published when he was no more. I don't like the man, but I must say, in spite of myself, that in this book he almost predicted me and my son Ibsen's. He predicted the future psychology, and that is what I am doing here. The future man, the new man. This small book must become a necessary study for all son Ibsens. 10th. Am I still right? Yes. So shows. Good. The book I am going to talk about is a Sufi one. The Book of Baha'u'llah. The original Sufi mystic, Baha'u'llah, created the tradition of Sufism. In his small book everything is contained. It is like a seed. Love, meditation, life, death. He has not left anything out whatsoever. Meditate over it. Enough for today. Books I have loved. 62. So shows. Chapter 11. 1984 in Lao Tzu House, Rajneeshpuram, Oregon, USA. Okay. How many books have I referred to in the PS up to now? There have been 40 books in the THUS shows. Good. I am a stubborn man. First, Colin Wilson's The Outsider. It is one of the most influential books of this century, but the man is ordinary. He is a scholar of tremendous capacity, and yes, there are a few insights here and there, but the book is beautiful. As far as Colin Wilson is concerned, he himself is not an outsider. He is a worldly man. I am an outsider. That's why I love the book. I love it because although he is not part of the dimension that he talks about, he writes very close to the truth. But remember, even if you are close to truth, you are still untrue. You are either true or untrue. There is nothing in between. The book, The Outsider, represents a great effort on the part of Wilson to understand from the outside the world of the outsider. From the outside to look into the outsider, just as if someone is peeping through your keyhole. He can see a little bit, and Colin Wilson is seen. The book is worth reading, just reading, not studying. Read it and throw it into the dustbin, because unless a book comes from the real outsider, it is going to be just a far away echo. Echo of the echo, reflection of the reflection. The second, the Analects of Confucius. I don't like Confucius at all, and I don't feel any guilt about not liking him. I feel really relieved that it is now on record. Confucius and Lao Tzu were contemporaries. Lao Tzu was a little older. Confucius had even gone to see Lao Tzu and came. 63. Chapter 11. Back trembling, shaken to the very roots, perspiring. His disciples asked, "What happened in the cave?" "Because you were both there and nobody else." Confucius said, "It is good that nobody witnessed it. That man, my God, he is a dragon. He would have killed me, but I escaped. He is truly dangerous." Confucius is reporting truly. A man like Lao Tzu can kill you just to resurrect you, and unless one is ready to die, one cannot be reborn. Confucius escaped from his own rebirth. I have already chosen Lao Tzu, and forever. Confucius belonged to the very ordinary, mundane world. But let it be noted that I don't like him. He is a snob. It is strange he was not born in England. But anyway, China in those days was England. In those days England was just barbary Jews. There was nothing of value there. Confucius was a politician, cunning, clever, but not really intelligent. Otherwise he would have fallen at the feet of Lao Tzu. He would not have escaped. He was not only afraid of Lao Tzu, he was afraid of silence. Because Lao Tzu and silence are the same. But I wanted to include one of Confucius' most famous books, just to be fair. Analects is his most important book. To me it is just like the roots of a tree, ugly but very essential, what you call a necessary evil. Analects is a necessary evil. In it he talks about the world and worldly matters, politics and all. One disciple asked him, "Master, what about silence?" Confucius was irritated, annoyed. He shouted at the disciple and said, "Shut up! Silence! Silence you will have in your grave. In life there is no need for it. There are many much more important things to do." This was his attitude. You can understand why I don't like him. I pity him. He was a good man. Alas, he came so close to one of the greatest, Lao Tzu, and yet missed. I can only shed a tear for him. Third, Khalil Gibran wrote many books in his mother tongue. Those that he wrote in English are well known, the most famous, The Prophet and the Madman. And there are many others. But he wrote many in his own language, few of which are translated. Of course translations cannot be the same, but Khalil Gibran is so great that even in translation you can find something valuable. I am going to refer to a few translations today. The third is Khalil Gibran's The Garden of the Prophet. It is a translation, but it reminds me of the great Epicurus. I don't know that anybody except me has ever called Epicurus great. He has been condemned down the ages. But I know that when the masses condemn a man there is bound to be something great in him. Khalil Gibran's book, The Garden of the Prophet, reminds me of Epicurus because he used to call his commune the garden. Everything a person does represents him. Plato called his commune the academy. Naturally, he was an academician, a great intellectual philosopher. Epicurus called his commune the garden. They lived under the trees, under the stars. Once the king came to see Epicurus because he had heard how these people are immensely happy. He wanted to know. He was curious as to why these people were so happy. What could be the cause? Because they didn't have anything. He was puzzled. Because they were really happy. They were singing and dancing. Books I have loved 64 Osho. Chapter 11. The king said, I feel very pleased with you and your people, Epicurus. Would you like a gift from me? Epicurus said to the king, if you come again, you could bring a little butter, because for many years my people have not known butter. They are eating just bread without butter. And one thing more, if you come again please don't stand like an outsider. At least for the time you are here become part of us. Participate. Be one of us. Dance. Sing. We don't have anything else to offer you. Khalil Gibran's book reminds me of Epicurus. I am sorry that I have not mentioned Epicurus, but I am not responsible for it. His book was burned, destroyed by the Christians. All the copies that were available were destroyed hundreds of years ago. So I cannot mention his book, but I have brought him in through Khalil Gibran and his The Garden of the Prophet. Fourth. Good. Another translation of Khalil Gibran, The Voice of the Master. It must have been a very beautiful book in the original, because even in translation here and there are traces of beauty, footprints. But that is bound to be so. The language that Khalil Gibran spoke is very close to the language of Jesus. They are neighbors. Khalil Gibran's home was Lebanon. He was born in the hills of Lebanon, under the cedars. They are the greatest trees in the world. Looking at a cedar of Lebanon you can believe Van Gogh, that trees are the desire of the earth to reach the stars. They are hundreds of feet high and thousands of years old. Khalil Gibran represents Jesus in some way. He belongs to the same dimension, although he was not the Christ. He could have been. Just like Confucius, he also missed. There were people alive in Gibran's lifetime to whom he could have gone, but the poor fellow was roaming in the dirty streets of New York. He should have gone to Maharshi Ramana, who was still alive, who was a Christ, or Buddha. Fifth is Maharshi Ramana's book. It is not much of a book, just a small pamphlet titled Who Am I? Ramana was neither a scholar nor was he educated very much. He left home when he was only 17 and never returned. Who returns to the ordinary home when one has found the real home? His method is a simple inquiry into your innermost core by asking, who am I? He is really the founder of the Enlightenment Intensive, not some American fellow, or fella, who pretends to be the inventor of it. I have said it is not a great book, but the man is great. Sometimes I mention books which are great, written by a little man, very mediocre. Now I am mentioning a really great man who wrote a very small book, just a few pages, a pamphlet. Otherwise he was always silent. He spoke very little, just once in a while. Khalil Gibran would have been immensely benefited if he had gone to Maharshi Ramana. Then he would have heard the voice of the master. Maharshi Ramana would also have been benefited by Khalil Gibran, because he could write like nobody else. Ramana was a poor writer. Khalil Gibran was a poor man but a great writer. Both together would have been a blessing to the world. 6th. The Mind of India, by Moorhead and Radhakrishnan. Moorhead knew nothing of India. Neither did Radhakrishnan. But strangely they wrote a beautiful book, very representative of the whole Indian heritage. Just the peaks are missing. As if a bulldozer had been going on and on. Books I have loved 65 Osho. Chapter 11. Destroying all the peaks of the Himalayas and making a plain. Yes, both of these fellows have done the work of a bulldozer. If somebody knows the spirit of India, I cannot call it the mind. Then the title of the book should be The No Mind of India. But although the book does not represent the highest, it still represents the lowest, and the lowest is the majority, 99.9%. So it really represents almost all of India. It is beautifully written, but it is only guesswork. One was an Englishman, the other an Indian politician. The great combination. And both together they wrote this book, The Mind of India. 7th. Now at the very end of our long list I introduce you to two books of which I think you must have already tasted. Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, and the 8th is Alice Through the Looking Glass. Both are non-serious. That's why I love them. Both are written for children. That's why I immensely respect them. Both are full of beauty, grandeur, mystery and small parables which can be understood on many levels. I have always loved one parable. For example, Alice comes to the king, or perhaps it was the queen. It does not matter. And the king asks Alice, "Did you meet my messenger coming towards me on the way?" Alice says, "I met nobody, sir." The king then says, "Then he must have reached here by now." Alice could not believe her ears, but just out of respect, amazed, Alice still remained silent. Quite an English lady. "Gudia, are you there? Just the other day you were asking me, is there still an English lady in me?" So shows. Just a little bit, nothing much, nothing to worry about. And a little bit is good. Alice must have been a perfect English lady. Out of formality she did not even giggle. She had said that she had met nobody, and the king thinks that she had met somebody called Nobody. My God! He thinks that nobody is a man, that nobody is somebody. Again Alice says, "Sir, did I not tell you that I met nobody? Nobody is nobody." The king laughed and said, "Yes, of course nobody is nobody, but why has he not arrived yet?" Such beautiful small parables in both the books, Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass. And the most strange fact to remember is that Lewis Carroll was not the real name, because he was a mathematician and a schoolmaster, hence he used a pseudonym. But what a calamity! The pseudonym has become the reality to the whole world and the real man is completely forgotten. It is strange that a mathematician and schoolmaster could write such beautiful books. You will wonder why I am including them. I am including them because I want to say to the world that to me, Jean-Paul Sartre's Being and Nothingness and Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland are all the same. It does not matter. In fact, if I have to choose between the two, I will choose Alice in Wonderland and throw Being and Nothingness in the ocean, so far away in the Pacific that nobody will find it again. To me these two small books have great spiritual value. Yes, I'm not joking. I mean it. Books I have loved 66 Osho. Chapter 11. 9th. Again and again I come back to Khalil Gibran. I have loved him and would have liked to help him. I have even waited for him, but he is not born yet. He will have to seek for some other master in the future. The Wanderer is my choice for this number. The Wanderer, by Khalil Gibran, is a collection of parables. The parable is the oldest method of saying that which is profound. That which cannot be said can always be said in a parable. It is a beautiful collection of small stories. What a con man I am! Even with closed eyes I am watching Devijit not only trying to say things, he is even using his legs, which is not very gentlemanly, and behind the back of the master. What to do? This is how the world is. This is beautiful. The shoe. Just remind me of the number. We were talking about number 9. So shows. 10th. Another book by Khalil Gibran, The Spiritual Sayings. Now I must object, even though the objection is against Khalil Gibran whom I love. He cannot be allowed to write spiritual sayings. Spiritual. Although the book is beautiful, it would have been better if he had called it Beautiful Sayings. Beautiful, not spiritual. To call it spiritual is just absurd. But still I love the book, just as I love all absurdities. I am reminded of Tertullian, whose book, forgive me, I have not included. It was impossible for me to include them all, but at least I can't mention his name. Tertullian's famous saying is, Credo qui absurdum. I believe because it is absurd. I don't think there is another saying in all the languages of the world which is more pregnant than this one. And Tertullian is a Christian saint. Yes, when I see beauty I appreciate it, even in a Christian saint. Credo qui absurdum. This should be written in diamonds, not even in golden letters. Gold is too cheap. This saying, I believe because it is absurd, is so valuable. Tertullian could have written a book entitled Spiritual Sayings but not Khalil Gibran. Khalil Gibran should meditate. It is time for him to meditate, as it is time for me to stop speaking. But I cannot for the simple reason that I have to complete the number 50. 10th. Am I right, Devijit? Actually we've done 50. That was number 10. So shows. Then I will do 51, because I cannot leave this one out. It is impossible, number or no number. You can do the same as I did. Do the misnumbering somewhere, and come to the same number as I am coming to. 11. Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot. Now nobody knows what Godot means, just as nobody knows what God means. In fact, Beckett did a great job inventing the word Godot for God. Everybody is waiting for nothing because God does not exist. Everybody is waiting, 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 and waiting for nothing. That's why even though the number was complete, I wanted to include this book, Waiting for Godot. Books I Have Loved 67 Show. Chapter 11. Now wait just for 2 minutes. Thank you. Books I Have Loved 68. So shows. Chapter 12. 1984 in Loudza House, Rajneeshpuram, Oregon, USA. Okay, now this is the postscript. It is hard to understand my difficulties. As far as I can remember, I have always been reading and doing nothing, day in, day out, for almost half a century. Naturally, to select is almost an impossible task. But I have undertaken it during these sessions, so the responsibility is yours. First, Martin Buber. I would not have been able to forgive myself if Martin Buber was not included. As a penance I include his 2 books. First, Tales of Hasidism. What D.T. Suzuki did for Zen, Buber has done for Hasidism. Both have done a tremendous service for seekers. But Suzuki became enlightened. Sorry to say, Buber could not. Buber was a great writer, philosopher, thinker, but all those things are toys to play with. Still, I pay my respects to him by including his name, because without him the world would not have even known the word Hasid. Buber was born into a Hasidic family. From his very childhood he was raised among Hasids. It was in his very blood, bones, in his marrow, so when he relates it, it sounds so true, although he is only describing what he has heard, nothing more. He has heard correctly, that must be on record. Even to hear correctly is very difficult, and then to report to the world at large is even more difficult, but he has done it beautifully. Suzuki is enlightened. Buber is not, but Suzuki is not a great writer. Buber is. Suzuki is an ordinary writer. Buber towers very high as far as the art of writing is concerned. But Suzuki knows, and Buber knows not. He is only relating the tradition in which he was brought up. Of course, relating authentically. Tales of Hasidism should be read by all seekers of truth. These tales, small stories, have such a flavor. It is different from Zen. It is also different from Sufism. It has its own flavor, unborrowed from 69. Chapter 12. Anyone, uncopied, unimitated. The Hasid loves, laughs, dances. His religion is not of celibacy, but of celebration. That's why I find the bridge between my people and the Hasids. It is not accidental that so many Jews have come to me, otherwise, I am always shattering the heads of the Jews as much as I can. And still they know that I love them. I love the essential in Judaism, that is Hasidism. Moses had not heard of it, of course, but he was a Hasid. Whether he knew it or not does not matter. I declared him to be a Hasid, and so I declared Buddha, Krishna, Nanak and Muhammad. Hasidism came after Baal Shem. The word does not matter, the spirit matters. Martin Buber's second book, I and Thou, is his most famous work, the book for which he was given the Nobel Prize. Forgive me, but I disagree with it completely. I mention it because it is a beautiful work, written artistically, with great profundity and sincerity. But still there is no soul in it, because the soul was missing in Buber himself. How could the poor man manage to bring it into his book, his masterpiece? I and Thou is very much respected by the Jews because they think it represents their religion. It does not represent any religion at all, neither Jew nor Hindu. It only represents the ignorance of the man called Martin Buber. But the man was certainly an artist, a great genius. When a genius starts writing about something of which he knows nothing, he can still produce a masterpiece. I and Thou is basically wrong because Buber says it is a dialogue between man and God. I and Thou? Nonsense. There cannot be any dialogue between man and God. There can only be silence. Dialogue. What will you talk to God about? The devaluation of the dollar? Or Ayatollah Khomeini? What are you going to have a dialogue with God about? There is nothing you can't talk about. You can simply be in a state of awe. Utter silence. There is no I and there is no thou in that silence. Hence I refute not only the book but even the title. I and Thou. That means one remains still separate. No, it is like the dewdrop slipping from a lotus leaf into the ocean. The dewdrop disappears, or in other words becomes the ocean, but there is no I and Thou. Either there is only I or there is only Thou. But when there is no I, there cannot be any Thou. It won't have any meaning. If there is no Thou, there can be no I either. So in fact there is only silence. This pause, my being silent for a moment, says much more than what Martin Buber tries to say in I and Thou, and fails. But even though it is a failure, it is a masterpiece. Third, Martin Buber was a Jew, and other Jews are standing in the queue. My God, what a long line, and poor Daviji and a shoe. After all, they have to eat too. They can't just live on my words. So I will be quick. I will try to disperse as many as I can. But a few are very stubborn, and I know they won't go away unless I say something about them. The man second to Martin Buber is one of the most stubborn, not more stubborn than me. Perhaps I was a Jew in one of my past lives, must have been. This man is Karl Marx. The book he is holding in his hand is Das Kapital. This is the worst written book ever. But in a way it is a great book, because it dominates millions of people. Almost half the world is communist, and the other half you cannot be certain about. Even people who are not communist, deep down they feel that there is something good in communism. There is nothing good in it. It is the exploitation of a great dream. Karl Marx was only a dreamer, not an economist, not at all, just a dreamer, a poet, but a poet of third-rate quality. He is not books I have loved 70 Osho. Chapter 12. A great writer either. Nobody reads Das Kapital. I have come across many famous communists, and I have asked them, looking deep into their eyes, have you read Dostoevsky? Not a single one has said yes. They said, only a few pages. We have so many other things to do. We cannot read such a big book. Thousands of pages, and all rubbish, written neither logically nor rationally, but as if someone had gone insane. Karl Marx goes on writing anything that happens in his mind. Sitting in the British Museum, surrounded by thousands of books, he went on writing and writing. You know, it was almost an everyday ritual that he had to be dragged out of the museum at closing time. He had to be forced to leave, otherwise he would not go. Once in a while he was even taken out unconscious. Now this man has become a god. There is something like an unholy trinity: Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, and of course Lenin. These three people have become almost like gods to millions of people on the earth. It is a calamity, but I still mention the book, not that you should read it, but so that you do not underline what I have said. Do not read it. You are already in a mess. Enough of it. No need for Dostoevsky. Fourth, remember that Marx is also a Jew. This is a whole line of Jews. Fourth, Sigmund Freud, another Jew. His great work is Lectures on Psychoanalysis. I don't like the word analysis, nor do I like the man, but he managed to create a great movement just like Karl Marx. He is also one of the dominant figures of the world. Jews have always dreamed of dominating the world. They are really dominating. The three most important men who can't be said to be dominating this age are Karl Marx, Sigmund Freud, and Albert Einstein. All three are Jews. The Jews have achieved their dream. They are dominating. But Marx is wrong as far as economics is concerned. Freud is wrong because mind is not to be analyzed, but to be put aside so that you can enter into the world of no mind. Albert Einstein is of course right in his theories about relativity, but he proved himself to be utterly foolish when he wrote a letter to President Roosevelt proposing to make the atom bomb. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the thousands of people who died there, burned alive, are all pointing towards Albert Einstein. It was his letter that started the process of making atom bombs in America. He could never forgive himself. That is the good part of the man. At least he realized that he had committed one of the greatest sins possible. He died in utter frustration. Before he died he said, I would never, never, never again like to be born a physicist, but only to be a plumber. And he was one of the greatest minds in the whole history of man. Why was he so frustrated with being a physicist? Why? For the simple reason that he was not conscious of what he was doing. He became aware only when it was too late. That is the way of unconscious man. He becomes aware only when it is too late. The conscious man is aware beforehand. Fifth, I have so many Jews waiting. It is so difficult whom to choose and whom not to choose. And you know Jews are not easy people to deal with. I should rather drop the whole line than bother. So I will start with something else. Be finished with the Jews, at least for the moment. Disperse all of you. I am talking to the Jews, not to you. Fifth, I was worried that I may not be able to mention Gurley J.'s book Meetings with Remarkable Men. Thank God for this PPS. This is a great work,